I'm Kenneth Cooper with George Reed. I am a plant engineer here. I oversee asphalt, material operations, mining, and aggregates. George Reed is a Modesto-based company. We're involved in asphalt production, mining, and general heavy civil construction. We have a material processing site at one of our shot rock quarries where we're blasting and then producing asphalt aggregates or other construction materials. The way we used to do it in the past was just all push button. There was no automation, no SCADA system, there was no real controls. So we implemented Ignition. We added a full PLC controlled SCADA system. My role was the middleman between the controls engineers and operations, kind of making sure that we not only achieve our overall goal of automating the plant, but making sure that everybody communicated and was actually getting what we needed out of the project.
My name is Quarry Mercer. I'm with the company Factory Technologies, and I'm a senior controls engineer. Factory Technologies is a systems integrator located in Northern California, primarily focused on the food and beverage industry, but we happen to do a lot of other projects like working in mining and aggregates. After implementing our Ignition solution, George Reed was able to have a fully digitized version of their facility. The relationship between Factory Technologies and George Reed actually started significantly before Factory Technologies even began as a company. Fast forward to today, George Reed wants more automation. So Ignition is being used as a SCADA system for George Reed, primarily simple HMI interface.
Our rock plants are at the early stages of automation. They're all PLC controlled. So now what we are looking to do is implement a data acquisition side of things and have a more robust, operator-friendly platform so we can scale out across all processes that we do.
And another very important aspect to George Reed is the tag historian and the SQL bridge functionality to be able to generate reports based on this historicized data.
Everything is developed in perspective. We use tag historian, SQL bridge reporting, and the enterprise administration module. Our special requirement is having a system that is robust enough to do anything that we need it to do, but simple enough to kind of set our own standards and parameterize, and to where when we go to make little adjustments, it's not a whole ordeal to go from one site to another when we're doing the build outs. We can have like a template, a standard process, just make little adjustments and minor tweaks to the program, and then we can launch another entire site.
The Ignition features most crucial for George Reed's application was the templating and UDT functionality. It was really important to them to have very consistent look and feel across the board for whatever site they decided to deploy this on, and make it so that they can train any new operators on how to use the system and deploy them at any site.
Being that we can have a standard for this platform, every operator is going to be looking at a similar screen no matter where they're at. So when we train one operator to do a task in one location, it's not a completely new process training them to do a task in another location. They're going to know where to look to get what information. Everything's going to be pretty standardized. Look, touch, and feel the same as a site that they're more comfortable with. George Reed's always number one goal is safety. Before Ignition, everything at the crush plant was push button control. They had a systematic way to go through and start and stop the entire plant. And if anything happened, they had to first get over the deer in the headlights thing and then think through the process and then start reacting to the event that occurred. When you have hundreds of tons an hour of material coming across or coming into the plant, you could have a very big spill, a very big transfer point backup. Other potential issues could be happening. So what Ignition has helped us do is catch those events before the operator even knows that event has happened. Mostly now the operator knows that there's a problem because his feeds have stopped and everything has stopped around him. With the alarming, going from the old push button to now just seeing anything is better. When the operator just sees a lot of equipment go down, he can actually look and see what caused that problem, as opposed to seeing a result of the problem and then having to react and then, okay, well, what actually happened? He can actually get a banner that says, hey, this is why this fault happened, and this is why your plant reacted the way it did. Going from a kind of old school way of doing things to automation and data-driven decisions overall is probably the key results of this project. Ignition has absolutely given us more tools for decision making in regards to the data that it collects. For example, when we have large projects coming up, we can look at actual performance of the plant, actual capacities, capabilities, and we can schedule and plan our production accordingly to make sure that we can not only meet the goals of some one-off projects, but still maintain the current customers and product inventories that we have from a day-to-day. Being able to, make data-based decisions instead of reacting has saved energy. We can produce in the earlier part of the day when energy demand isn't as high, and instead of having to work super long hours and, through the peak energy use periods, it's helped alleviate some of the strain on the grid. We're using the data in Ignition to help manage our preventative maintenance routines a lot tighter. It's actual data that we have that we're collecting that we're able to prove out day in and day out. It's helped us have visibility on downtime.
Maintaining the project for George Reed could not be simpler. Very, very rarely do we get a call that something is down, and normally it's just network related. I don't think I've had a single ignition related problem since its installation. I think that implementing Ignition will benefit George Reed's long-term goals by giving them the ability to make more data-driven decisions. We've been historicizing data since its implementation, things like motor amps, motor runtime, fault history, things of that nature, with the intent that as they decide to come up with reports that seem relevant to them, we will already have the data set up ready for them so they can pull and make decisions based on that. Once we settle down and figure out what is important to them long term, having all of this data captured is really going to make decisions easier for them in the future.
So some of the end results of the project that we have implemented is improved efficiency, better insights, better analytics. We can actually gather, collect data, and act on data, making data-driven decisions, which overall, in the long run helps us out. Better planning in general will just kind of make it to where you're not in a fumble at the 11th hour trying to make up for lost time. We have all around just a better operation.
The operators really like the system. So far, the operators that have had a exposure to other SCADA systems, they like what we've implemented with Ignition significantly more than what they had seen in the past.
We plan on continuing to expand the amount of sites that we have on Ignition and bringing more operators into the fold running the SCADA system. Working with Factory Technologies has really been probably the leading factor of the success with this project because of Ignition's abilities. It could go, the opposite direction pretty easy. If somebody doesn't have a strong integrator like Factory Technologies, you can really go down a path that ends up costing you a whole lot more money than what it should. It is a relationship. It's not only a strong integrator, but somebody who understands your goals, because I'm not an integrator, and Factory Technologies isn't an operator of a processing facility, but we work together to make sure that our goals are met by whatever products that they're coming to help us integrate. But our relationship is really a good highlight of the project.
Ignition is such a flexible software, it's really applicable to every industry. As a systems integrator, I feel confident that I could pitch Ignition as a SCADA of choice for any industry I walk into, and it would do the job and excel at that job.
As far as implementing Ignition, it's making a decision on how you want it to go, because ultimately the sky's the limit, and that's the beauty of the project.